Welcome back, everyone, to Caffeinated Combat. My name is Matt, and I'm joined here with my good friend Kyle, and we're going to go over some nice UFC news that just came out a couple of days ago, as well as the UFC May 30th card featuring Tyron Woodley and Gilbert Berns, and the destruction that Gilbert Berns has caused, and how he spiced up this division over the last few hours here. Kyle, how do you feel about the John Jones controversy coming
Well,
into this?
first of all, Matthew, I have to correct you, my boy. I have to correct you.
Okay.
And the correction comes in. We ain't calling this UFC May 30th. We're calling this UFC Vegas because no other UFC event has ever taken place in the city of Las Vegas.
All
Las
right.
Vegas is considered a city, correct? Am I correct in saying that?
I don't think anybody knows. That's the tough
It's
one.
it's like its own sovereign nation at this
Yeah,
point.
that's lawless as well. So
Yeah, weird that they're calling it UFC Vegas. I think they should call it like UFC Apex.
that sounds a lot more marketable. UFC Apex, I like that.
UFC Apex number 1.
Yeah, what's wrong
It's
with
the
that? There's gonna be
first
more.
it's the first actual UFC event in the Apex aside from the Contender series. Weird that they called it UFC Vegas. Whatever, who cares? I don't know what I'm talking about. What I do know is that John Jones wants to be released from his UFC contract because he and Uncle Dana not seeing eye to eye. So John wants, and I quote, I'm quoting Dana here, Deontay Wilder money to move up to heavyweight and fight Francis Ngannou. Dana and the rest of the UFC not willing to pay our boy Johnny Bones. So Johnny Bones is saying, you're tarnishing my record, release me from my contract, and a whole bunch of other nonsense. So, how I see this, wow, there's a lot. There's a lot here. So, we don't know the number he has asked for. We really don't. It's somewhere in the ballpark of 10 to 30 million. That's a big gap there. Now, here's the thing. Does John Jones deserve that kind of money? Yeah. But why not? Like, who are we to say he doesn't deserve it? The guy's a star. He's one of the greatest fighters, if not the greatest fighter of all time. I would love to see all fighters get paid more. But the truth of the matter is that's an ideal in a not ideal world right now, right? I mean, the state of the world is so beyond bad. I mean, it's really. I mean, we have the quarantine stuff. UFC has not been letting any fans in. No gate. I mean, all sports for that matter. We have rioting in major U.S. cities. It's just things are not good, and to begin with, let's assume for a second that things are good. We are living in a better world. MMA is not the sport that the NFL is. For example, John Jones said, I'm comparing this with what my brothers make and how the NFL treats their athletes. Well, it's just not the same thing. It's just apples to oranges. American football has been around for forever. Like, it's such a staple in American culture, right? MMA is just not that. I mean, the UFC has only been around since what, like 93, something like that. So, I don't know. I don't find this to be. I find this to be a situation where everyone is kind of wrong in their own way. I want to see fighters get paid more, of course, but I don't know how possible that is. And when I say I don't know, I literally mean I don't know, because these actual numbers and stuff are left so vague to us. We literally don't know how the UFC is doing right now. We don't know if they could be truly paying their fighters more, or if they're just being greedy, or if they're being frugal for the sake of the sport and the sake of the company. I don't really know. What's your take on John and this whole situation?
Well, you're right when you say that it's kind of a tough time to start asking for this kind of money. The 10 to 30 million, that's a lot. That's McGregor numbers right there. I believe he only made 30 million when he fought in boxing with Floyd Mayweather. So to ask for that kind of money in the for the UFC in MMA and compare it to stuff like the NFL, it's kind of crazy to me. You know what I mean? I don't think he should be asking for that amount, but then again, he also says that he never asked for that amount, and he said that Dana was lying, and Dana has also come back and said that he should go just talk to his lawyer, the UFC's lawyer. And at the press conference, somebody asked Dana about this, and Dana basically responded saying that the UFC lawyer and John Jones had a very nice conversation. And not in like a bad way. He meant legitimately they had a nice conversation. And I guess they worked it out. But I'm not surprised that this is happening. I am surprised that Dana said to have the UFC release him though, and that another promoter would be happy to pick him up. That it seems a little extreme to just kind of bail like that when your super fight doesn't get made. But I could agree with him. He should be making more money. But at the same time, $5 million, what he makes now, that's a lot. Most fighters in the UFC don't make anywhere near $5 million, and he definitely moves the needle when he has pay-per-views. But $5 million, how much do you need?
The
And he
truth of
fights
the matter
often.
is this is not a sport that warrants those massive paychecks. I really don't believe that. Like, ideally, of course, I want to see them all get paid more. I have no reason to say, no, you shouldn't be making more money. I don't care if he makes more money. That's not my objective or anything like that. But I look at it and I'm like, I don't know if that's possible in the world of MMA. This is not boxing. This is not football. This is not NBA. This is not any of these sports. This has to be, I mean, it's been on the rise, I would say, in the last few years, but I would still assume this is one of the least popular sports in the United States when you compare it to things like football, basketball, baseball. It's got to be. Even boxing. The thing about boxing is they will pay their main event crazy amounts of money, and then the rest of the card is kind of bad. I mean, we have the oh, hold for a massive truck. We have the advantage in MMA and the UFC particularly, where I shouldn't say every card, but most cards are pretty stacked. And even last night, a card that was a little bit subpar, still better than most boxing cards you're gonna get. Like when you get something akin to Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, you have to sacrifice your undercard for that. Your undercard is not going to be anything spectacular. Whereas with the UFC, they tend to there's more balance in these cards, and does that come from just a reduced fighter pay? I don't really know. I would assume yes, but yeah, John being asked, John saying just release me, that doesn't really surprise me. John is an extremely emotional guy, and he's always just like throwing out the most dramatic things. You know, like him, just all of this little feud with Dana. None of it surprises me with John. John is just, I hate to say it, but John's continually a problem in the sport. He really is. I mean, the guy, he is one of the greatest, maybe the greatest of all time, but it always seems like there's something going on with him that it in a negative aspect. You look at some of the other greats, your GSPs, your Anderson Silvas, the it they just don't have these blemishes, I guess. The only other person I could say that receives this constant negative attention would be Conor, because Conor has had his fair share of, run-ins with the law and just very questionable actions. And while this is not that, this is just, a disagreement between an employer and an employee. This is very much John Jones. This is very like him to just be in some kind of drama, in some kind of conflict that keeps him out of the cage. If it's not PED stuff, it's criminal stuff. If it's not that, he's disagreeing with the UFC. If it's not that, it's a million other things. The guy is just, he's a problematic individual. He really is. It's always something with John Jones. That's basically all I'm getting at here.
No, I agree with you there. I think John, he's a special cookie, definitely. He stands out above the rest, but he is a problem maker, so it kind of balances out a bit. I like what you said, how he's similar to Conor McGregor with that amount of negative attention that he gets. And as much as I want him to get paid, like you were saying, and how much I kind of don't care at the same time, I do hope that the UFC could get to that point where basketball is, the NFL is, sometime in its future. And I'm not saying that's going to be anytime soon, but you could hope, being an MMA fan, that, it's definitely growing considerably throughout the years. I mean, if you look at it from the 90s and you look at it now, it's insane to even think about. And the level of professionalism just keeps going up and up and up, and the more fighters that get interested in this sport, the better the competition's going to be, the more it's going to evolve. And I think the future is definitely bright. But John Jones won't be around for that, so I'm sorry, John.
I think he will be. But while I do think he is nearing the end of his career, not like immediately, but he's over the hill, I would say. Like, he is past his peak. He's past his prime. I don't think this is the end for him. I think he's being dramatic as he normally does. I don't think he wants to actually get released. And guess what? These other promoters, they're not gonna pay him what he wants to get paid. Bellator, One, you name it. I mean, I don't know how they would actually do that. Maybe, like, if he wanted to take the pro wrestling avenue and go to, like, WWE or AEW, maybe they could pay him that. Like we see Henry and Rashad Evans and Vitor Belfort, coming out with Mike Tyson the other night on AEW. Maybe. I don't know. Well, WWE definitely. WWE is definitely a richer company than the UFC. But the thing about John is he doesn't have a particularly compelling personality for something like pro wrestling. Someone like Henry Cejudo fits in perfectly. Same with like Colby, if Colby was to go over. Ronda, we saw what happened there when someone with a not great attitude goes. I mean, she was successful for a bit, but now she has just been really hated by the wrestling community for, she's another one. She's kind of like John, where she has this attitude that it's difficult to get behind her, She is by no means the level of John. Ronda's just like a sore loser and just kind of crappy to people. John goes a bit beyond that. John is also extremely fake, right? Which you would assume would help with the pro wrestling aspect if that was the route he wanted to take, but it's not the kind of fake that's like fun, like Henry. Like Henry plays like kind of this character that's a little on the like it's the cringe, the king of cringe whole thing. John is it's a little nastier, right? Like he's not this guy that he talks himself to be, but it's always, oh, glory to God, just happy to be here, but like it's all bullshit. Like he's not this saintly individual that he makes himself out to be. So Yeah, it all sucks. Really, we would love to see this super fight happen. We'd love to see any fight happen with John, even at light heavyweight, because light heavyweight is. I mean, there's so many contenders for him. He was talking about fighting Jan Blachowicz, but that was before he said release me. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
I like how John does that. He preaches God and a lot of good stuff, and that's great. And then he turns around and starts drunk driving, crashing into pregnant women, shooting guns off in his
Shooting
truck.
guns, yeah,
Yeah,
during quarantine.
yeah. He's such a dynamic character in that regard. But that's John for you. Another
Yeah.
piece of fun news, I should say questionable news that came out, that I've honestly forgot about, but I just remembered, is Conor McGregor fighting Anderson Silva. I
Oh,
now I watched Luke Thomas about this, and Luke
yeah,
Thomas was saying that he's not excited at all
not a
for this
fan.
fight.
I tend to agree with him personally.
I was gonna say, he was saying like, I'm the only one that thinks this. That's crazy, but no, I
No.
think we both feel. I don't feel any. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't feel any excitement for it, but I don't feel any excitement for it. I don't know why. It's just Anderson Silva is. I thought he was retired. I thought he should stay retired. He's not in his prime at all, and McGregor is in his prime. And I
Let's
guess
rem-
they're interested in that weight difference and the size difference, but still, it's Anderson Silva. He's over the hill. He's off his PEDs. He's not looking too great recently.
Let's remember too, the last time we saw Anderson in the octagon, he hurt his leg again. It wasn't as
Oh yeah.
bad as when he hurt it, obviously, against Weidman. I mean, that was brutal. But he hurt. The guy is not. He's not what he once was. I mean, I agree with Luke 100% here. I am not interested in this at all. I'm not compelled by it. Connor has looked. I mean, Connor looked really good against Cowboy. And then Anderson's last two outings have not been spectacular. Yeah, it's as simple as he's over the hill, and I'm just not interested in it anymore. Facing a guy that is is Connor in his prime? I don't really know. It's hard to tell with Connor because we see him so infrequently, and he jumps around in weight class. Like you could say featherweight Connor was in his prime. Maybe, I don't know. You could lightweight Connor. I don't really know. Welterweight Connor, is welterweight Connor the best Connor? Who knows? Like we've seen so many versions of him, and we don't see it often. Like it's easier to track someone's career when you see them frequent. Like someone like Cowboy, you can kind of see the ebbs and flows in Cowboy's game across weight classes because we see Cowboy like every 10 minutes fight. Um, Whereas with Connor, it's like every few years we see him compete. So it's hard to really track that. And then with Anderson, yeah, I mean, Anderson is. It's almost time for Anderson to hang it up. Maybe it is time. The last two times we've seen him, while he hasn't looked very good, he's also not getting like brutalized the way like BJ Penn was in his last outings before the UFC cut him, where he retired. I don't remember which it was. He hasn't looked like that. He hasn't looked or like Chuck Liddell, where you're like, come on, a commission has to step in and tell this guy, like, you can't compete anymore. Like, this is irresponsible at this point. It hasn't gotten to that level with Anderson Silva yet. But it's not good, you know? It's just not good.
I like fights that kind of tell you a little bit of information about the fighters. You know what I mean? Like when, like for example, when Stephen A. Smith watched Cowboy versus Conor, he said that it ended so quickly that he didn't think he got any information about Conor's skill set. And while I don't agree with that example, I think that showed us a lot about Conor. I don't think that the Anderson Silva fight will show us anything significant for Conor's skill set. Or, I mean, even Anderson's skill set. This is such a weird fight to put together that I don't really see a purpose for it other than entertainment. And I don't know if you'd call Conor beating up a person who's washed up entertainment. And while it might not go that way, I feel like it will go that way. I just don't think it's entertaining.
Yeah, I
I
think it
don't
would
think
be.
we're gonna. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna learn anything about it or about the fighters. It just seems kind of pointless, and
It would
they're
be
just.
similar to the Cowboy fight, I think.
I think
Connor's
Cowboy is a much more relevant fighter, for
yeah.
sure, though.
I think it would be similar to that, where Connor just explodes in the beginning and just puts him away real quick. That's all it would be.
I don't want to see that. I don't know. I'm
I
probably
don't
we're
either.
probably in the minority, so we'll let the
I
other
don't
people
know.
have their
Like
fun.
I've heard this narrative that like this is a fight that everyone is on board with, but I also haven't exactly seen that myself across like social media and stuff. I haven't seen people like itching for this fight. I
No,
think
I
I
haven't
saw
either.
I think I saw way more interest in him and Kamaru. Honestly, like it I haven't seen it. Like everyone's talking about like how everyone wants to see this when it happened, or when like the Twitter exchange happened. I just don't see it. I don't see the fans, salivating for this fight. I really don't.
No,
I see them more salivating for John and Francis.
if this was if this was Anderson in his prime, of course it would be interesting. I'm not saying it's Anderson's fault that it's not interesting. It's just where Anderson is now that makes it uninteresting. And yeah, Conor McGregor wanting to fight Kamaru Usman. I think if that were to ever happen, Gilbert Burns just threw a huge wrench into that talk. That
Yeah,
man
he did.
is extremely deserving of a title shot now, in my opinion. I think what he did last night to Tyron Woodley, that speaks so much about who he is as a fighter and what he brings to the table. And the welterweight rankings right now are so compelling to look at. Whereas you can argue when Tyron was champion, not much was going on. It was just Tyron played his little game. He backed up. He had an overhand right. He knocked people out. Now we have Kamaru Usman comes in, dominates Tyron Woodley in the same fashion as Gilbert Burns. But Gilbert Burns, I think, dominated Tyron Woodley even better. I think that he put more of a pain train per se on Tyron Woodley. He beat him in every single aspect of mixed martial arts. If you want to break MMA in its simplest form, you have striking, you have wrestling, you have jiu-jitsu. He beat Tyron in every single department. I could not see a victory with Tyron there besides for his only trick. He has one trick. He throws an overhand right. He backs up and he tries to counter you. I think Tyron is basically a one-trick pony, and I think this new generation of fighters, this Kamaru Usman, these Gilbert Burns, they're just gonna come in here and swamp these traditional guys that specialize. And I think Tyron Woodley's gas tank also really surprised me there. He was so much less active, and he was extremely tired in comparison to Gilbert Burns, who was just unfazed by anything. So impressed with Gilbert Burns. I think that Kamaru Usman and him, even though they're teammates, that is the fight to make. I am also though concerned about the fact that they're teammates. I don't know how that works out. I feel like that's always an awkward point in MMA
Yeah,
where you have to
I was
fight
gonna
your
say
friend. It's kind
it's
of like,
awkward, isn't it?
yeah. How do you feel about what happened last night?
Well, here's the thing I want to talk about first. You mentioned the rankings. I just looked at the rankings. They haven't been updated yet, so Gilbert Burns is still at number 6. But here are your welterweight rankings. So you have Kamaru at the top, champ. Then you have number 1, Tyron Woodley, which is very weird, even prior to last night. Very weird to have him at number 1. Then you have Colby. Then you have Jorge Masvidal. Then you have Leon Edwards. Then Stephen Thompson. Where do you put Gilbert Burns once these are actually like updated and he gets moved? Where do you put him in these rankings? You definitely put him above Stephen Thompson, and probably do you put him at number 1? Like what, I don't know how this works.
I saw on one website that predicted the ranks, he was number 1. He just flat out replaced Tyron Woodley because right now Tyron is the number 1 contender. Am I right?
Yeah, like I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know how you don't replace
I
Tyron
think
Woodley.
you replace him. Dana
Yeah,
said top 5, but I think he should be number 1. Because if you think about the matchups here, who gives Kamaru Usman a more difficult time? than someone who fights exactly like him but better, and is his teammate, and knows all the intricate details of his fighting style and maybe his weaknesses. And that could go against Burns as well, but how could you say that's not the most interesting matchup here? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, it would be an easy call. I see what you're saying. It would be an easy call if you didn't have so many other compelling names in this top five. Maybe with the exception of Stephen Thompson, just right now, just for right now. So for the sake of this discussion, we'll put top five as well, yeah, I guess you can't even put Tyron anymore as top five, but Colby, Jorge, and Leon are, in addition to Gilbert, are the most compelling names right now at welterweight. And I would say it's an easy call. Put Gilbert right at the top. He's Kamaru's next opponent. But, man, it's weird. It's weird. So Jorge, you can kind of exclude, I think, because he's interested in the rematch with Nate, which is good for the sake of this division and just keeping things a little more straightforward. So Leon was supposed to have the Tyron fight. That didn't happen because of the pandemic stuff. We don't know when we'll see Leon again because he's stuck in the UK. And then you have Colby just kind of in the wind. Do you put Colby against Leon when that's possible, whenever, Leon is able to travel? And then Jorge and Nate, and then Gilbert and Kamaru? I guess that's probably what you do, right?
That sounds good. But like you were saying, there's so much talent here. It's hard to.
I mean, hey,
hard to
this
pick.
is a good problem, right? For the
Yes,
matchmakers,
it's fantastic.
This is a good problem where you have this handful of guys, and you're like, oh man, all of these are good fights. I don't know where to put, like, Kamaru and Jorge is a good fight. Colby and Kamaru is a great rematch to have. That fight was an instant classic when it happened. Gilbert and Kamaru, and Gilbert or Colby, and like there's so many cool ways you could arrange this as opposed to something like flyweight, but we won't talk about that. Or women's featherweight. We won't talk about that either. But so yeah, it's cool, man. Like welterweight is really popping right now, and bantamweight is also really popping, and it's gonna be even better after UFC 250 when we have that little like bantamweight de facto tournament that we're throwing down. That's gonna be real cool. But yeah, as far as Gilbert's performance last night, yeah, it was nothing short of remarkable. I mean, it was domination in every area. He did everything right. I have little to no complaints. There is no. I would have to go back and watch that fight probably one or two more times to really pick out things that I saw from Gilbert that I was like, oh, you that's something that needs to be worked on. Maybe sometimes his striking was a little wild. Maybe that's like a really minor, because when I say sometimes, I mean like maybe like 5% of the time, and the other 95% his striking was just on point. His takedowns were fantastic. Now granted, Tyron did defend some of them, but that's an all-American wrestler, so to be expected. Jiu-jitsu, he didn't really get to employ that too much, but we know it's great. I mean, actually, he did go for a Darce choke at one point, didn't he?
Did,
that looked
yeah.
pretty deep. That was fantastic, and that would have been ironic, right?
He went for a one-handed guillotine as well, and he was somewhat close to locking that up.
Could you imagine if he got Tyron with a Darce choke, the same choke that Tyron got Darren Till with? Probably Tyron's most impressive performance in a while. Like we haven't seen Tyron look as good as he looked against Darren Till in quite some time. It was great to watch. I'm really happy we did not, because he dropped him right at the start, and it looked close to being done. He cut him open. He dropped him, cut him open, landed some vicious ground and pound, and it got close. But hey, credit to Tyron for recovering. as well as he did. I mean, that's championship experience right there, being able to get yourself out of those fight-ending situations, or possibly fight-ending situations. I'm happy it didn't end there. And not because I want to see Tyron get dominated the way he did, but because we got those questions about Gilbert answered. We've seen this guy perform really well in the past, but I think it was the question of how can someone like that, can that translate to a championship level fighter? Like, could he translate that skill set over to much more elite opponents? And the answer is yes. Yes, yes, yes. I mean, he translated it perfectly. And I'm so happy this wasn't a quick fight, because we got to see him in deep waters. We got to see him everywhere. It was just a absolutely great performance by Gilbert Berns. Like I said, I would have to go back and really look at that fight to pick out things that I thought he did wrong. Of course, there are problems in every fight with every fighter, but his were a little hard to see. And the question is, was it? I don't want to take credit away from Gilbert when I say this, but was it him doing remarkable work, or was it Tyron failing to show up? I mean, really, the reality is it was both. But I wonder to what degree it was one or the other. Do you know what I'm saying when I say that?
I would say that it's not more on Tyron than it is on Gilbert, because Tyron, I mean, he fights the same exact way on every single fight. If going back to even to not Robert Whittaker, Robbie Lawler, he kind of backs up, he sets you up in a trap, and he throws the overhand right. But what happens when a fighter like Maru or Gilbert just know how to defend against your one tool? I don't think it's more of Tyron being on his way out, as if his skill set did not evolve properly to a well-rounded fighter. And I think that the body language also is very interesting to look at.
Yes.
Tyron Woodley was constantly like punching his gloves, trying to hype himself into it, get himself into it. So he was definitely on his way out, as some people like to say. But I don't think I think he got like that because of what happened in the first round. And for those of you who didn't watch it, he got hurt. I believe it was a left hook that started off the blitz that Gilbert Berns put onto Woodley, but he really hurt Woodley and battered him on the ground as well in that first round. So I think Tyron, his stance was also a little bit different as well before that happened. So I think that there were two defining moments in the fight. One very short moment before Berns hurt him bad, and then the rest of the fight after that, where he was constantly psyching himself out, trying to get back into the fight. It wasn't the same after that. You know what I mean? Did you see a significant difference in what happened there between the two moments?
Yeah.
Or between that moment?
Here's the thing with Tyron. You said something last night along the lines of, like, there are more tools in the arsenal for Gilbert. And I don't think Tyron is lacking the tools. I don't think he's lacking the skill set. I think his problem here is almost entirely mental. I think he is in need of a sports psychologist. I truly think that. Something is up with that guy. I feel the way to a lesser degree, but I almost feel the way I felt after when we saw Francis Ngannou after the loss to Stipe. It's like they something broke, and they were so tentative, and they couldn't get back to that place that they were at when they were really dominating. I feel Tyron is in that place right now where he's failing to reach the Tyron of old. And I don't think it has anything to, I shouldn't say anything because he is 38 years old now, but I don't think it is necessarily just the skills are degrading. Like we look at John Jones lately, and we could say with almost certainty that John Jones' offense has degraded a little bit. And it's not necessarily like a mental thing or he's not initiating. Like it's a slight uh, degradation of his offensive skills. And that just comes with being past your prime and getting a little bit older. That is not the deal with Tyron right now. He is just not employing any of his skill sets. He's not employing them effectively, at least. He's not employing his wrestling. He's not employing his striking to the fullest degree. And these are skills that he has. He's one of the greats at welterweight. He really is. He's one of the greatest welterweight champions of all time, next to like GSP. And that's not what he is tapping into in these last two fights. And I almost, I think in the Kamaru Usman fight, I think he got caught off guard by how good Kamaru Usman is. I think we all kind of got caught off guard by how good Kamaru Usman was in that fight. I mean, I certainly was not expecting that. And I think to some degree Tyron was not expecting that either. And I think that fight really messed him up. I do. I think something is up there. You know, in Anthony Pettis' last fight, he fought Cowboy. He won. He looked pretty good. That's another guy who's past his prime, and his skills have degraded a little bit, in all fairness. He is not Anthony Pettis when Anthony Pettis was doing Showtime kicks, off the cage against Benson Henderson. He's just not that guy anymore, but he's still very skilled. Like all the tools are still there. They've just worn down a bit. And he talked about in his post-fight interview how he went to a sports psychologist, and it helped tremendously because he was losing a bit there prior to the Cowboy fight, and he was speaking very highly of it and how it just helped him get back to a place where he felt confident, and he had nothing but good things to say about it. And I think that needs to be a more accepted idea. Amongst these fighters, they're all tough guys, and I don't say that sarcastically. They're literally all tough guys. They really are. And a lot of times mental health does not want to be acknowledged by guys who are tough like that. You're just supposed to grin and bear it, and you're not supposed to complain, and you're not supposed to have emotions that aren't I'm tough and I'm mean, that kind of thing. But that's a false idea, because they're human beings, just like any of us. So I think Tyron seeking out that, and maybe he has already, we don't know, he could have just not said it, but I think he needs something like that to really jumpstart him again, because while I was very impressed with Gilbert's performance last night, there was just a complete nullification of offense. And I don't think that's just because Gilbert is really good. I think it also has something to do with the fact that Tyron is not pulling the trigger. And it's not because those tools are not there. It's there's some kind of mental gap there. I think it's a confidence issue. I think it's a confidence issue.
I think I would agree with you to some extent, but Gilbert Berns just did so well of making Tyron. He made him pretty much just have to guess the whole time, which nullified his offense. But I do agree to an extent that it probably is Tyron Woodley's mental game. But what Gilbert did so nicely was every time he backed up against the cage, most fighters just go in for the punch, the overhand right, and he counters with his overhand right, and he catches them. But Gilbert would just constantly feint. He would kick him in the legs, square him up, and get him out of position where he couldn't really employ his tool. So while I do agree that it probably does have something to do with his mindset, and he could definitely use a sports psychologist, I think Gilbert Burns just knew how to pick him apart, even in his prime. I think he would have done the same thing. An interesting thing to note is that Tyron stated that I believe he went to Thailand
Yeah.
and struck there for a big part of his camp. What did he do there? I don't know. He didn't seem to strike any differently than he's ever done before. I don't know what he learned in Thailand. Did you see anything resembling a new skill set in terms of
I
going to Thailand?
I didn't see
Yeah.
anything new, and that's not to say the skill set is not there. I think
You just
I think the skill set is there. It's just not being employed.
so you think
And
it's just pulling the trigger is the tough part.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think he's just having a real problem engaging and having confidence in his striking ability. It's weird, man. It really is. And if you look back, this is going a little ways back, but Tyron was on JRE. This is when he was still champion, and he was talking a lot about like how people don't respect him and things like that. And while that is true, Tyron is not been given a fair shake by the fans or by Dana White in the greater UFC. I mean, he's considered, and I quote, a boring fighter. So people don't really give him the credit he deserves, and people also just they don't like his attitude. And he was talking on JRE, and basically in a roundabout way admitting that this stuff really bothers him. And Joe was telling him, like, why are you thinking like this? You're the welterweight champ. You're the baddest man on the planet at 170 pounds. Like, you're one of the most dominant champs in welterweight history. Why are you letting people like destroy your confidence like this? And I think this is something where it's built up for a long time. His confidence is just not there anymore. And of course, there's been this idea of he's distracted. You know, he's gone very celebrity as of late. You know, with his rap career and all that. And all I gotta say to that is, oh, hang on, timing, comedic timing not working out for me.
Are you?
Come on,
And
you
I
could,
said, are you done? Are you done with the
Aw.
snow? Can we move that shit along? She said, yeah. Yeah, that lasted.
yeah, I mean that's all.
That would have verbally TKO'd Gilbert Burns if he started rapping in his ear when they were on the ground. I don't know why he didn't do that.
Oh man, poor Tyron. He is. Yeah, something's not there, man.
All jokes aside, that's a bad song. We just gotta get that out of the way. That's just not. Something happened there. Like when he released "I Beat Yo Ass," like that was funny. It was okay, but compared to that, "I Beat Yo Ass" is platinum level stuff. Like, oh my.
Okay,
God.
in all fairness, that particular video, the one that has really taken the MMA world by storm, "In and Out of Love," that it's like a stripped down version. You take any rapper and you like just completely remove all accessories to the like you remove all music and it's just them singing into a mic or rapping into a mic. It don't sound great. Probably better than that, but it still don't sound great.
I don't know, man. That didn't sound too good. I don't think post-processing could have saved that. I'm not gonna lie. I love you, Tyron, but that was not your best work. I think you gotta.
Man.
I mean, I'm myself a professional rapper, obviously, so I would know. But you gotta give it more heart than that. I think that song is very reminiscent of his striking. He just can't pull the trigger. He's kind of like lulling you to sleep.
Oh man.
I'm so sad he didn't walk out to it too. What the hell? Do you
What
know
did
how to
he walk
market your
out to?
music?
Did he walk out? Was that his music he walked out to? I have no idea.
I don't think so, but I also don't know because it was a really weird song. It
Yeah.
wasn't that bad though, so I'm guessing it wasn't him.
Oh, Jesus.
He's gonna come to my house and just fucking right hand me right in the
Yeah,
face.
dude. Like he admitted this kind of shit that we're doing right now gets to him. Not that he will ever listen to this.
He's gonna be the first viewer.
He will never hear anything we have to say.
Tyron,
but
if you're here,
regardless,
I want you to comment something in the section below, okay?
Hey, Tyron Woodley, hit that like and subscribe button, will you, buddy?
Oh, Tyron, hit that dislike button so we know it's you.
Yeah, Tyron.
Where
I
do you
don't
think he
know.
goes from here?
That's an excellent question. That's a very good question.
It's a tough one.
I sure as hell don't have the answer to it. It's tough, man. I don't I don't know. I really don't. You can't give him anyone in the top of the welterweight. Obviously, a title rematch not in the cards. Colby, Jorge, Leon, Stephen Thompson, Damian Maya, Michael Chiesa. I mean, he's
Give him Conor McGregor.
he's technically like a good fight for any of these guys in the top, like in like the 10 to 15 range, but I don't know.
He still is like a good fighter. I feel like once he maybe gets over that mental block that we're talking about, he can become back to what he once was. But maybe give him Robbie Lawler.
I was thinking the same exact thing. Robbie Lawler.
Yeah. That's who he won his belt from, Let's start from the bottom again. Let's redo this thing. Let's go full circle.
Robbie has also had a. It seems like he's had a bit of a gap,
Yeah.
a real problem with pulling the trigger as of late. Ever since the Ben Askren defeat.
Ah, too soon. And it was his last fight, Colby Covington. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I think so. He didn't look good in that fight.
I mean, Colby's another animal, but
Yeah.
I think Robbie Lawler and Tyron would be a good fight.
Hey man, I want to see anything from Tyron at this point that is not what we saw. Now, we have to take into account the guy's 38 years old. That he's getting there. He's getting to that point where you
Yeah.
got to start talking about do we hang it up,
Yeah.
And I don't think as I said with Anderson Silva a little while ago, I don't think it's at the point where you're like, oh my God, this is disgusting. This guy should not be in there. Like, this is wrong. I mean, this is like ethically wrong. Somebody needs to stop this guy. It's not that. Sure, he is getting beat up, but it's not like, it's not the kind of beating where you're like, man, this guy is losing years of his life by doing this. I don't think it has gotten to that level yet.
Yeah.
He is still, I mean, hey, he didn't get finished last night. This still went to a decision. But it is getting to that point where you have to think about, like, do you want to get to that point where people are saying, like, dude, you need to really evaluate whether or not this is a thing you should be doing anymore. You don't want it to get to that point. You want to call it before it gets to that point. And I think he needs to be given one more shot. I think give it a little bit, maybe like 6, 7, 8 months, and then let's see if he has another performance like he had last night and like he had against Kamaru Usman, then I think you want to start talking about, okay, maybe it's just not there anymore. Maybe it's time to hang it up.
I definitely want to see him continue fighting. Even something like Anthony Pettis would be a fun fight.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if the age is a big factor. I mean, look at Stipe Miocic. He's 57 years old and he's fighting like a madman. It's crazy. So I mean, 38. It's definitely old, and it's not going to set him to any advantages, but I think he has the technical skills to still make a new name for himself. But I think the first part is just pulling the trigger, sports psychologist, reinventing yourself as a fighter, and then coming back, fighting someone like Robbie Lawler or Anthony Pettis, and just grinding your way back to the title. We can see a really big redemption here if he could get past this mental hurdle that he has. Because he's such a dynamic... Okay. No. He's not a dynamic fighter. But he's such a skilled fighter.
You don't think he's dynamic?
I think he has a right hand and good defense. I don't think he has a gas tank. His jiu-jitsu is... Okay. I'm going to
He's a
backtrack
black
a little
belt,
bit.
isn't he?
He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He doesn't ever use it.
That's true.
He doesn't use his wrestling. So, all right. You're
He's
right.
a good defensive wrestler.
Yes, he has the skill sets, but he only uses one. And I think he needs to just totally reinvent himself and come back. Because he said himself he doesn't like to wrestle because it gasses him. And you kind of saw that last night with Gilbert Berns. He was tired against Gilbert's pressure. But he needs to learn how to deal with that kind of pressure. And I don't... He went for a takedown here or there. I think I remember. But it didn't lead him anywhere, unfortunately.
Nothing really meaningful in
No,
terms of
and-
takedown wrestling offense.
The mental thing you could tell with Gilbert Berns after every single round, he followed him and just stared him down like Tony Ferguson does in his fights.
Yeah.
And just, you could tell he was mentally on top of the world. And he is such a good, happy dude. He just loves what he does. And
Yeah.
Tyron
seemed
doesn't
very
seem to love it.
excited.
Yeah, Tyron doesn't seem to love it like Berns does. So
Yeah,
I don't know. It's
that's
a
a good
tough call
point.
to see where this is gonna go.
You know, speaking of Tony Ferguson, this does feel very much like the old guard getting pushed out. I feel similarly to this as I felt with Justin beating Tony Ferguson. Of course, he beat Tony Ferguson much more severely than Gilbert beat Tyron. But I feel the same way where I'm like, it's the young generation coming up and pushing out the old guard. Not that Tony is all that old, but he's older. You know, he's been around for a bit. And then we see these young, hungry contenders who are coming up and just, you know, pushing out the old guard. It's as simple as that. Did you see anything else on this card that really stuck out to you? Aside from that fence grab that cost Blagoy Ivanov the fight?
Oh god, that was egregious on multiple fronts. He would be in prison if this happened in any part of the world.
Dude, Daniel Cormier yelled so loud when it happened, and then he started like whispering because he realized how loud he was.
Jason Herzog, what are you doing? He
Yeah.
definitely paid him like $100 to Jason Herzog. Ignore the fence grab. One fence grab per $100. I think Mackenzie Dern had an impressive performance. Not in the beginning. She was getting kind of pounded by her opponent.
She got a performance in the night bonus.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
She brought it back though. She got the first knee bar in women's. Was it women's MMA history or just her division?
I think it was women's MMA history.
And she hyperextended that leg. That freaked me out. Ugh. I hate knee bars.
Yeah.
I don't like arm bars either, but it's just that something about the knee bar that's so much worse. You know?
I'll be honest, when I saw she got the performance of the night bonus, I was like, really?
I didn't expect that.
I was like, okay, I guess. I mean, listen, all credit to Mackenzie. That was an impressive submission, but I also feel I also feel like Hannah Cyphers was a bit like, here, want to take my leg?
Yeah, she
was
did
like-
not respect the Brazilian jiu-jitsu of the newfound Brazilian.
She was, yeah, Mackenzie been adopted by Brazilian culture, I guess.
She loves
Yeah,
it.
she has the Brazilian accent. She wears the Brazilian fight gear. She's a white lady from California.
She is devolving vocally, but that's okay.
Yeah.
She's definitely on her way up in the
Watch
in
watch
the
her
rankings.
watch her post fight interview. She speaks only with her teeth. She's like,
Really?
yeah, so I use my Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I thought it was really great, and yeah,
So-
I'm just happy to be here.
Do accents devolve that quickly when you move to another country? Because I know it does happen, but it
Does
seemed
she-
like it happened really quick. I thought she lived in Brazil, but I don't know. She
I
could
mean,
very well live in California.
She's definitely been there, like
Yeah.
quite a bit, and she's married to a Brazilian guy. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems unlikely to me. I mean, you hear like a lot of some actors, like if you look at like Charlie Hunnam or Christian Bale, they're British guys, but they've kind of lost their British accent because they
Yeah.
do American accents so often. But like, they're still obviously British. Whereas Mackenzie, I'm like, where are you from? Like, what is that? What is that voice you have? Yeah, I mean, hey, great work last night, but I was also like, man, Hannah Cipher's just like
She looked so defeated.
she was like, hey, wanna do a knee bar? And Mackenzie was like, sure, I'll do it.
Why did she even go into her guard like that? She was piecing Mackenzie Dern up on the feet really badly.
Yeah.
Ooh, that was tough
Not
to watch.
not great decision making.
No,
Hannah
and I mean,
Cipher's
it's probably when you're in the moment, who knows
Yeah.
how you're feeling, but
Yeah,
she doesn't have that level of
it's all
fight
reactionary.
IQ. Yeah, so she did well, but Mackenzie Dern just capitalized on a juicy moment per se, and that was the end of that. She started
Yeah.
crying at the end, Hannah, I believe, or at least tearing up. She was just sitting there like, why did I
Yeah,
do
it
that?
was-
I,
it
I
was-
I felt the pain. Ugh.
Speaking of performances, I was like, ooh, that was not terrific. Brock Weaver, man.
I thought you were gonna say Shevchenko. Oh,
That too. Yeah, Shevchenko. She did not look great. Caitlin Chukagian looked awesome. Caitlin
did.
Chukagian looks just like your mother.
She does. That freaked me out.
She
Said,
looks
Mother,
like
why are you fighting?
she looks like Denise.
Dennis, what are you doing in there? Get out of there.
Yeah, yeah. That had to be a tough loss for her, considering her sister beat Caitlin Chukagian. That's a very awkward situation to be
Yeah.
in. But
Like
what'd
you
you?
said, at the
what'd-
dinner table, it's gonna be a little
It's
awkward.
gonna be real weird at the Shevchenko dinner table. Ugh. But hey, Valentina put out a really nice thing afterwards. That was basically just like, "I love you no matter what," and I wish I could have been there tonight, and blah blah blah. It was nice.
What if she disowned her completely? She took it out. Like, you are
She
not
was
my
like,
sister.
"Don't come home."
I am not impressed with your performance.
Ah, shit. Yeah, that was sad. But hey, good for Caitlin Chukagian. She did great work.
She did. Thank you.
What'd you think about Brock Weaver? Because we're both very interested in that guy.
I think that Brock has potential, but he was kind of fed to Roosevelt. Was it Roosevelt?
Roosevelt Roberts.
Roosevelt Roberts. Yeah, I was gonna say Robbins, but I knew that wasn't right. I've never seen Roosevelt fight before, but he was the favorite going into this by quite a bit. So I expected that he was the higher level guy, but
Yeah, he's really good.
He's a good striker. I just think Brock Weaver, he tried to employ that Gilbert Burns rushing game, but none of the defense involved in that. He was just getting pieced up on the way in and
He also
in
missed
the middle.
weight.
Yeah, by 3 pounds or 2.5.
No,
or
I think
something
it was
like that.
just one.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I
But-
think he weighed in at like 157.
He's a talented guy. I just think he needs a little more time. You know, I think he could definitely get up there within the next few years, but it was
Yeah.
tough to watch him get beaten up like that.
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of animosity between them going into that fight too, which made it pretty interesting. They were talking to each other a little bit. Couldn't really understand what they were saying, but yeah, Roosevelt Roberts he mentioned it himself. He has those long skinny arms that are just great for chokes. You know,
Yeah.
he's tremendous at just getting around people's necks and scrambling, and yeah, he's gonna be a serious threat in the lightweight division, I think, in time, because that division is so deep and it's so hard to really break through, I think, as opposed to something like
Bantamweight.
bantamweight is pretty deep too.
Even with
Lightweight.
Henry gone and TJ gone and Dominic Cruz out the door and Cody
Yeah,
Garbrandt
man.
having no chin.
Yeah, you got
Yeah.
Peter Yan, you got Cody Sandhagen,
Marlon, yeah.
Marlon, Aljamain Sterling. Yeah,
Jose Aldo now. Can't forget.
Yeah.
Forgot about that. Okay, yeah, you're right. Okay, how about flyweight?
Well, yeah, flyweight.
It's not like flyweight.
Flyweight has never been deep ever, unfortunately. Yeah, it's I'm excited to see how both guys progress. Really, it was a little rough last night watching Brock.
I liked his Native American antics that he had in the weigh-ins and stuff like that. He was really trying to make an image for himself. I thought
Yeah.
that was interesting. He wasn't
Yeah.
going too over the top like the guy that came out with the Plague Doctor mask. That was great.
Spike Carlisle.
Spike Carlisle.
That was a good fight.
He's good.
Dude.
Yeah, that was good.
That was a really good fight. That didn't get fight of the night, and Dana seems to kind of regret it afterwards.
Yeah,
Billy
I thought that
and-
definitely would be.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not Quarantillo. Remember, he told you that. It's Quarantillo. He was very upset in his post-fight interview. He was like, my name's not Quarantillo, it's Quarantillo. You're going to be hearing more of that. And I was like, all right,
buddy.
All right, Quarantillo, get out of here.
You're good. You're going back to quarantine.
Come on, Armadillo, get out of here.
It seems.
All jokes aside, he put on a good performance. His cardio is infinite.
I have to
Hats
rewatch
off to
that
him.
fight, but initially I thought Spike won.
I did too. I thought Spike won the first two, and then Armadillo won the third.
Armadillo. Dude, Spike came out with that kick right to the head. That was fucking crazy.
That guy is fun. I wish he had the cardio to go along with his style, because he would just be unstoppable.
What's his something Ginger? What's his name again? His nickname?
Oh, I forget. It's funny.
We gotta look it up. It's
Spark Carlisle.
Spark. Did you call him Spark?
Spike. The Alpha Ginger. Oh,
the
yes.
Alpha Ginger. What a name. That's
Very creative stuff. It took him years to come up with that.
I think he's got potential to be a real star. He's got the look. He's got the personality. Kind of like Brock Weaver, where you're like...
He's a big dude, too.
If you could start putting some really dominant wins together, like, you will stand out. You know, the thing is, look honestly matters a lot. Like, you got to be like an interesting looking guy. You know what I mean?
He's marketable.
Yeah, like you got to be like if you look like Yoel Romero, like you automatically get more attention. You know, you're just this giant brick of a human. Whereas if you look like, I don't know, Robert Whittaker. you don't. I love Robert Whittaker, but like, you know, he's just kind of a regular looking old dad. Same with Justin Gaethje, honestly. Like, Justin Gaethje is just like a regular looking dude.
I mean, if you compare him to his opponent, like Billy Margarita did not look anything like
Billy Margarita.
Like if you put the two of them next to each other and you said who's gonna win this fight, you'd go Spike. Who's more marketable? You go Spike. Who has more potential? You go Spike just by looking at him. You know?
Billy Argarito was he kind of looked like your like Fallout 4 default character, you know? Like
he kind of did. He was very basic. Billy Santiago, get your stuff together, right? Come on.
Oh man, he's gonna get like fucking roasted about his name for.
He's gonna come on this in our comment section with Tyron. He's gonna have a field day.
Not because it's a weird name. He made it a weird name.
Yeah, he kind of did.
He kind of drew attention to it, where you're like, all right, bud.
I grew so attached to the name like Quarantillo. That it just sounds so much better than Quarantillo. It's like you're rolling up a burrito. What? I don't know. Good fight though.
Yeah.
I was impressed with both of them.
Dana said, I'm going to throw something their way. He's like, I'm going to give those kids something. He refers to them as kids. They're probably like as old as him. Big Daddy Uncle Dana. That's my favorite thing to call him, Big Daddy Uncle Dana.
Well, not a lot of people know this, but Dana's actually 107 years old. He uses so much testosterone replacement therapy that he just doesn't age. It's very impressive.
Oh, man. Dana, where's Fight Island? You know, Dana says he's going to stay on Fight Island for like the entire month of July. Like, he's going to live there.
Lives and breathes UFC. I respect
it's
that.
Going to be like the, he said there's going to be like the Dana White cabana or something like that.
Oh my God. I wish he'd tell us where it is so we can go there.
I hope it gets made, since, you know, the UFC is probably financially getting screwed right now, considering the world has ended.
I mean, do you think they got any bailouts from the government? Well, most of the major corporations definitely got bailouts. I don't know how much.
I have no idea. They do have investors, so yeah.
They've got enough money to stay. I can't imagine they're in the red, but who knows?
Yeah, pay John Jones. Come on, let's get that.
Just give all your profits to John, or you know.
Let's get that Francis fight.
That's what the people want.
That's what the people want. Shall we wrap up this disaster of a podcast? podcast.
Yes, sir, we shall. It's the best one yet. What are you talking about? We got Tyron Woodley, Bill and Corin Billow in the comment section right now, disliking it for days. It's excellent.
Oh, man.
Well, with that, this has been Caffeinated Combat with your favorite hosts, Matt and Kyle.
No, that's not true. Nobody likes us.
With your most hated hosts, Matt and Kyle. We're gonna come with some replacements next week for you. Don't even worry about it. Thank you,
Canceled.
everybody. Canceled. Yeah, we're gonna scrap the whole idea. We'll be here with a new podcast next week. Thank you all for watching. If you made it this far, which you didn't, and have a good day.
Adios.